Good evening, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, every heart carries a story. Some stories are written on paper, but some live quietly inside us, etched in our memories, whispered in our emotions, and carried in our souls. Today, I want to share one such story. It is not just about two people. It is about all of us. A story of innocence, of love, of pain, and of strength. This is the story of Ethan and Sophia. Do you remember the first time your heart skipped a beat? The first shy glance, the nervous smile, the hesitation before saying something you truly felt? Innocence is the language of the heart before the world teaches it. When I think about novels or love stories, I often notice that the most magical part is not the ending, it's the beginning. That very first spark when two characters meet, a glance across a crowded room, an unexpected encounter in a library, the way one hand reaches for another without words. Those small, trembling moments of innocence create the strongest chapters because they are unplanned, unpolished, and pure. In our lives too, innocence is not weakness. It is not immaturity. Innocence is courage, the courage to believe in something before we know how the world will respond. It is daring to love without calculation, to care without expecting, and to trust without proof. That is why innocent hearts are beautiful. They carry the raw truth of emotions we often try to hide as adults. And maybe that's why in the stories we love, the most memorable lines are not filled with perfect logic, but with innocent confessions like, I don't know why, but I feel at home with you. In every novel we read, each character's story is different. One tale may end in joy, another in heartbreak. But what makes them powerful is not whether they last on forever. It's how deeply they are felt while they last. The same is true for us. Every innocent heart carries a story that deserves to be told. And sometimes these stories don't need words. They live in the way someone remembers a moment, a favorite song that reminds them of someone, a street corner that suddenly feels like yesterday, or even the smell of rain that brings back an old smile. The reason we call it an endless story is not because love always lasts forever in time. It's because love leaves marks on the soul that time cannot erase. We may outgrow people, cities, and even versions of ourselves, but those innocent moments remain tucked into the corners of our memory, like folded letters we never throw away. Think about it. Haven't you ever read a love story that made you cry? Not because you lived it, but because it felt like it belonged to you? That's what our own stories are like too. Endless, not in duration, but in their ability to shape who we are. Now, some of you may be thinking, not all stories of the heart are happy ones. And you're right. Some stories break us. Some stories leave us with questions we'll never answer. Some stories end before we are ready. But here is the truth. Even broken hearts can write the most beautiful poetry. In fact, some of the most unforgettable novels, songs, and films were born out of pain. Why? Because pain has a way of carving space inside us, space where wisdom and compassion can grow. Our innocent hearts are tested through loss, rejection, or distance. Yet, with every test, we discover strength we never knew we had, just like the characters we admire in novels. We, too, are transformed by our struggles. The very pain that once felt unbearable becomes the ink with which we write our next chapter, And that is why the story of innocent hearts never truly ends. Because love is not about who stayed or who left. It is about who we became because of it. It is about how we learned to stand up again, how we carried forward the lessons, and how we allowed ourselves to love once more, even after being broken. So yes, innocent hearts may stumble, they may ache, but they also rise. They rise by turning pain into poetry and love into strength.